Hill press conference in advance of the Air Pollution Control Board hearing considering the draft air permit for the proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline Buckingham Compressor Station in Union Hill. Before we begin, I would just like to take one moment for everyone here to note the treasure that they're standing in. Here we are in an ocean of great bounty of air. We have to have it to live, and here it is, both inside and outside of us. So if we could join together just in one collective breath, so that we remember that what today is about is air, our lives. So count of 4 in and count of 4 out. Here we go. Thank you. Reverend Boyd, is he here with us in the room? The first speaker will...
Morning, everybody all right?
Yes.
Is everybody awake?
Yes.
Thank you. Let me bow in prayer. Father God, in the precious name of Jesus, we thank you for this great day. And we thank you, Father God, because we are one collective on one board. And Father God, we believe truly that you are truly with us. We ask, Father God, for the divine guidance. We ask, Father God, that we might continue in hope as we move into the now. We thank you, Father God, for those who have sacrificed to come many distances to be here today. We ask simply that our voices will be heard, and Father God, that we will be answered. We love you, and we honor you in everything that we do, in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Morning. So, I'm Chadwell, and I live in Buckingham County. I live in the Union Hill neighborhood. And today, I feel as though the quality of our lives is really being decided upon by this air board. Our lives in Union Hill and the lives of our children and the elderly and those who are struggling with illness and poverty need to be factored into the costs of continuing to allow these fossil fuel projects to proliferate. And we're all Union Hill because we'll all lose in the end, as we can see by the disaster climate changes that are all around us these days. But the people who live in my community are always the first to suffer. Our energy systems just cannot continue to create sacrifice zones so that large profit-making corporate interests can continue, like Dominion Energy. They need to factor in the cost benefits of the welfare of our lives and our precious resources of air and water, the land, and all life, so that those things that are our life support systems can prosper. It's time to get our priorities straight. This is a battle that we must win, and it's going to take all of us. Everyone in this room and everyone you know who will listen to you. So please do talk to people. Stay active. No matter what happens today or tomorrow, we can't give up. We are all Union Hill. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Richard Walker. I'm fifth generation
descendant of my great-great-grandfather, Taylor Harper, who in 1863 received or was released from slavery as a freedman. He was able to purchase his land in 1885. This land has been in our family for over 100 years. There are 3 more generations behind me that have been bequeathed this land. It's high time that the Commonwealth of Virginia stops the environmental racism, the justice racism, the inequities that have been permeated throughout this state for the past 100+ years, since 1902 at the first convention of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia. They have not allowed for people of color to have equality like others do in this state. At what point will the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia change? At what point will they be offering us the equalities and stop the inequities that have persisted throughout this Commonwealth? It's high time that these individuals, seemingly intelligent individuals that serve in the General Assembly, get the message that if they embrace all cultures, all peoples in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it would make this state a greater state than it is. I'm here to serve notice on those individuals that have not been protective of our rights and those individuals that have been exploiting our rights. Your days are numbered. I have here the handwritten deed of our property. Dominion has already, in fact, we got a letter the other day from the Supreme Court that they have us in court in Roanoke. I am determined to fight it to the end. I will not let the Commonwealth of Virginia allow big business to take advantage of us. They took a primarily African-American community where they could have went any other place for this pipeline, but yet they exploited the African-Americans that is predominant in Union Hill. They take us for granted, and I'm not going for it no more. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Greg Hubert. I'm a lawyer with the Southern Environmental Law Center, and I want to talk to you about the board's authority to consider environmental justice. The board has an obligation to consider the environmental justice problems caused by this compressor station. Virginia law requires the board to consider the suitability of the activity to the area. And that same law also requires the board to consider the harm to the safety and health of people caused by the activity. These factors, suitability and harm to safety and health, they're the factors that make up the components of environmental justice. There's a very strong argument that the board must use this authority to consider these factors. The Virginia Energy Policy requires the Commonwealth to consider environmental justice in the development of energy resources and facilities. That law was passed in 2014. Just this year, Governor Northam's new energy plan says Virginia is dedicated to ensuring that there are not disproportionate impacts on economically disadvantaged or minority communities during the siting of energy resources. Can the board ignore these direct instructions from the General Assembly and from the governor? The answer to that is no. The bottom line here is that the Virginia energy policy describes the kind of state we want to have. A state where environmental justice means something when decisions are made. Against this backdrop, let me put words to the problem facing the board. We know this compressor station will cause pollution.
Yes.
We know that some of this pollution is toxic,
Yes.
like formaldehyde and hexane. And we know exposure to those pollutants harms human health.
Yes.
And we know that a minority community literally lives right down the street. What we don't know is how the health of this community will be affected. And why don't we know that? Because it hasn't been studied. And it hasn't been studied by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and it hasn't been studied by Virginia. In fact, as you all well know, Virginia declined the recommendation of the Advisory Council on Environmental Justice that called for further review of the station's impacts on the health and lives of the people of Union Hill. That's the problem we're facing. The board today must determine whether this polluting compressor station should be placed in the Union Hill community. DEQ says that all pollution from the compressor station will meet standards, and because of that, it could go anywhere in Virginia. But we wouldn't put it next to an elementary school, and we wouldn't put it next to the University of Richmond, and I'm certain we wouldn't put it next to Monticello or Montpelier. So the board has to ask itself today, if we won't put it in those places, should Dominion be allowed to put it in a historic African-American community in Union Hill?
Hell no.
The board doesn't know what the health effects of this compressor station will be on this community. And there are some who will say a health assessment has never been done for a project like this. That's not true. Right now, the state of Massachusetts is doing a health assessment for a proposed compressor station. Here's what the Massachusetts governor had to say. We recognize the serious concerns that have been raised by many. Although the siting of compressor stations is primarily regulated by FERC, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts need not and will not remain silent during this process. And the Massachusetts governor also said that Massachusetts won't issue any air permits until a health assessment is done. And this fact, I think, will get your attention. The Buckingham compressor station that we're talking about today is 7 times bigger than the compressor station being assessed in Massachusetts. We need that kind of attitude in Virginia.
Especially from a governor who's a
Environmental justice must mean something in our state. That's what the Virginia energy policy tells us. We have a state that takes environmental justice seriously when it makes these decisions, and that's what we must insist the board do today with the Buckingham compressor.
Yeah.
Good morning. I am Delegate Jennifer Kilfoy, and I represent the 2nd District in Prince William and Stafford County in the 2nd District.
Yeah.
I'm here today to talk to you about what's at stake. It is the future of our children, the future of our Commonwealth, and the future of our country. Today we are at a crossroads. We have a decision to make. If we want to be a government that protects the environment, cares about clean air and clean water, that doesn't pollute minority communities, or whether we want to allow a legalized monopoly that contributes and donates millions of dollars to legislators, to write its own laws. Now, I stood before a group in Richmond a year ago, and I proclaimed that I was not going to accept any Dominion money. Now, I was warned and advised against this, but I wanted to make sure that the people understood where my allegiance was, where my loyalty lies, that I am here to represent the people and not power and corporate interests. It is my job to be the checks and balance for the legalized monopoly that we have here in Virginia. And when things don't make sense, to ask questions. Why are we trying to build particular things in particular communities? Why is it that we have an issue with coal ash, where in Possum Point in Woodbridge, I can walk from my house to coal ash ponds from Dominion that has been proven to leak lead, arsenic, mercury, carcinogens, things that have harmful health outcomes that's been leaking into the soil, into well water, into our rivers and streams. Now, Dominion wants to cover this up, cap in place. But I'm here to say no. I am a steward, a champion for the people, and that will not be done. So we need to recycle and reuse as much of this as possible, of these poisons, and then take it and move it to a lined landfill off-site, away from communities, away from drinking sources, away from our environment where it can have harmful, and irreversible impact. So that's what happens when you actually vote and put people in place who have made a commitment to you, the people, to stand up for our environment and do what's right. Now, I remember seeing a woman, a mother of 3, hanging 32 feet in the air, perched between 2 oak trees, because Dominion is trying to take land and create pipelines through her community, through her home that was given to her husband 400 years ago. Now that's her dedication and commitment. Now I'm here to pledge to you that I will stand with you all to hold Dominion accountable, to not give them a blank check here in Virginia, to say that people's health outcomes are important, and that you will be held accountable for the decisions that will be made that not only affects our communities, but our environment. Now, Dominion, we are fighting against them who wants to build a massive fracked gas compressor station for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline through a majority African-American community in Union Hill. That is a 54,000 horsepower compressor that will run 24 hours a day, causing noise pollution, creating toxic air emissions, and harming health outcomes for everyone in that community. Now, I am hopeful. I am hopeful that things can change. And whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, liberal or conservative, I think we all want clean air and clean water. As a mother of 15-year-old twin boys, I do not want to have to worry about whether or not, when I cut on the faucet, whether this is water that I should give my kids. None of us should have those concerns. The government works best when it's held accountable, when questions are asked, and we put people before profits and power. Now, I took the pledge, and I am happy to stand with all of you. I am happy that you are all here. When we raise our voices, we will be heard loudly and succinctly, because a threat to our air and water is a threat to us all. Thank you.
For members of the press who may have arrived late, there are press packets by the door. We're going to have a 2-minute video and then continue with this amazing roster of important speakers that have joined us here today.
Again, good morning. I think everybody probably knows who I am. I'm Pastor Paul Wilson of Union Road Baptist Church in Buckingham County, Virginia. I just want to again thank all of you. I want to say thank you to all of those who on Tuesday who were elected or re-elected to stand for our cause. And I certainly want to thank all of them. The real thing that I really want to say to you is that some statements that have been made already this morning, and I certainly agree with them, but this thing is even much larger than that. This is certainly reflective of past practices in our country, of how projects of this magnitude have been approached, and it is high time that we certainly, as we're doing now, to stand against such things. Union Hill is just a microcosm of the problems that we have, because what affects the least affects all of us. What happens to Union Hill, Union Grove community can happen anywhere. Community, it could be in Yoderville, it could be where no one has a college education, where everybody is marginal, we're just poor. And so we need to stop these types of things that happen to us. I'm getting ready to exit, but if you read the Richmond papers today, there's an article that appears that some people in Union Hill, the Union Road community, along with the county, have struck a bargain with Dominion about money. And it continues to show the tactics of Dominion, continue to divide us about money, the question of money, and we need to be really concerned about that. So again, I just want to thank you as I now exit. Hard for a preacher to take an exit. God bless.
Good morning. I am Reverend Kevin Chandler, Virginia State Conference President of the NAACP. I'm joined this morning by Ms. Karen Camlin, who is the chair of the Environmental Justice, Climate Justice Committee. Also, Mr. Jesse Frierson, the Political Action Chair, and other NAACP members. I'm here in support of any efforts to stop this pipeline. Why? Because there is no denying that many of our African American, low-income communities of color are disproportionately impacted by environmental injustice perpetuated by the oil and gas industry, and it must be stopped. Each year, over 9 million tons of toxic pollutants are dumped into the air and exposing our communities to health, economic, and social hazards. People of color have often been impacted by big oil, big gas. And Dominion, we're here to take today to say enough is enough, and we're not going to take it anymore. We must stop this pipeline because it's a tragedy, and where it is, we're paying Dominion to kill us. They're putting profit over people. And according to the recent study by the NAACP and the Clean Air Task Force called Fumes Across the Fence Line, more than 1 million African Americans live within a half a mile of existing natural gas facilities. Many African American communities continue to face an elevated risk of cancer due to air toxic emissions. And as you've heard, this compressor station is like none other. This compressor station is a 54,000 horsepower compressor station running 24/7 will emit dangerous gases, and not only that, the vibrations from it will present high risks of explosion in the Union Hill area. The NAACP is standing against this pipeline. It must be stopped. And scope must be required to conduct comprehensive and cumulative impact assessments, which haven't been done. And so therefore, there are places across the Commonwealth who will be impacted just as Union Hill, and where it is that impact studies have not been done, in places such as Georgetown, a community where there is one way in and one way out. If there is a disaster, what are they going to do when it is the first responders have to come in and the people that are impacted are trying to get out? It creates a bottleneck. And so, we the NAACP continue to strongly stand by our May 2018 and September 2018 statement to DEQ to halt all construction activities associated with this pipeline.
Yeah.
It must be stopped. We also urge the engagement of proactive outreach efforts with the residents and property owners directly impacted by this project. And as you heard from others this morning, that this will not only impact the Union Hill area, but it will impact all of us across this Commonwealth. And this pipeline will go across our great state with no benefits to the citizens of these United States, no benefits to the Virginians that this pipeline is going to impact by the dangers of these emissions of gases, the vibrations which will cause the livestock in that community not to reproduce because of the vibrations. And until these conditions are met, this project will continue to serve an irreparable environmental injustice. And we are saying it must be stopped, and it needs to stop now. On behalf of the NAACP, we are going to continue to stand strong in opposing any further operations for this pipeline. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Delegate Elizabeth Guzman. I represent the 31st District, which includes parts of Prince William and Fauquier County. And I'm also the chair of the Freshman Caucus. And I'm happy to announce that 13 out of the 16 members on the Democratic side that were elected last year refused to take money from the Dominion. So I'm hoping that each one of you would help my colleagues get reelected, because we're coming for re-election next year. And also, we will hold accountable all of these members that continue to get money from Dominion to make sure that they are unseated, and we elect more progressive in Virginia who believe that climate change is real and that pipelines are not good for Virginia economy. From higher electric bills to confiscated property to environmental degradation, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline is an unfolding disaster for Virginians, but a cash cow for Dominion. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline is bad for Virginia's consumers and businesses. It's projected to cost more than $6 billion to build and could easily exceed those costs. The $6 billion cost of the Atlantic Coast pipelines will ultimately be paid by Dominion ratepayers. An independent analysis showed that it will cost ratepayers on net $3 billion over 20 years, even taking into account the benefit Virginians might potentially receive from the natural gas if it's sold to them. Why the high cost to ratepayers? First, the vast majority of natural gas will be sold outside of Virginia or overseas, if not all of it. We pick up the infrastructure costs, the energy goes elsewhere, and guess what? Dominion's investors get the profits.
That's right.
Additionally, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, guarantees Dominion Energy and its investors a 14% rate of return on its equity in the pipelines. You have listened correctly.
Criminal.
Dominion and its investors are guaranteed billions of dollars. No matter what, even these pipelines could never sell a single unit of energy in Virginians. Virginians would be on the hook for billions, up to $2,330 for every Virginian that gets services from Dominion Energy. It is also important to know that our demand on electricity has been flat since 2010.
That's right.
According to Governor Norton's 2018 energy plan and Dominion's own regulatory filings, until today, Dominion has not proved that these pipelines are necessary for Virginians, and they have not promised to keep our energy prices low. The reality is that the ACP and the MVP involve corporate self-dealings, where the buyer and the seller of the natural gas are essentially the same entity. This means that the gas will be sold no matter what, allowing for utilities to force Virginians to cover the cost at guaranteed rates of return. If we add it all up, there are two facts that Virginians should be mindful of. Virginians have been guaranteed higher energy bills, while Dominion is guaranteed higher profits for their shareholders. That's a massive tax on household, businesses, and anyone else Dominion's service territory in Virginia. I also believe that the ACP are bad for Virginia's property owner and their safety. According to the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, from 2015 to 2017, there were 33 fatalities and 167 serious injuries during 939 separate accidents involving natural gas pipelines. Property owners in the pipeline's path have had their property seized under eminent domain. That means that only in very rare circumstances is used for public need. However, private land is being seized and transferred to Dominion and its investors. The law requires pipeline operations to fully compensate and protect property owners. Nevertheless, property owners are bearing the costs and seeing non-benefits or protections that should be owed to. Finally, I would like to mention that Atlantic Coast Pipelines is bad for the environment and quality of life because Dominion is running a dangerous and unprecedented experiment in our backyard, creating erosion and runoff that could create mudslides, contamination of drinking water, air pollution, loss of trees, and habitat for endangered species. The list goes on and on. To conclude, I believe that to build a compressor station in the historic Union Hill, it is unfair and unjust. Even Governor Norton's Advisory Council on Environmental Justice have endorsed the suspension of air and water permits for the Atlantic Coast pipelines and we must stop this now. I'm here to tell you that it really saddened my heart to listen when we were talking about the Virginia Assembly. And my promise to you today is that we will change that. And you have me and my freshman class allies in the Virginia Assembly, and we look forward to working with you together. And now we'll do that.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea Miller, and I'm with the Virginia Poor People's Campaign. All right, now, can we get everybody moving and get ready to get excited because we've got to go down to that Air Quality Review Board. Now, we are all Union Hill. Say it with me. We are all Union Hill. Now, why are we all Union Hill? Raise your hands if you breathe air. We are all Union Hill. Drink water. We are all Union Hill, and somebody is trying to hurt our people. So, no, we said no to dumping poison in our water. Didn't we say no? No. We said no to dumping toxic pollutants in our air. Doesn't no mean no? No means no. We said no. We are all Union Hill. We will all stand together. We will all defeat these horrible, toxic, disgusting oil and gas. I'm not limiting myself to pipelines and compressor stations, whatever new thing they come up with. If it's dirty, we are against it. And we will be standing together to fight it. So we believe in clean energy. There is nothing lean about this compressor station or these filthy, disgusting pipelines. They are filthy. They are horrible. And I want to applaud that freshman class of the Virginia General Assembly. And then I go freshman class. And then we want to make and put the rest of the General Assembly on notice. If Dominion is your daddy, you're going to need a new family.
Morning. I'm Faith Harris, and I stand here as today as you all are as Union Hill. I stand here as Union Hill, as Ruby, as John, as Lakshmi, as Kay, as Swami Dayananda, as Pastor Paul, and then our new friend, Mr. Walker. We are all Union Hill today. We are Union Hill because we support the more than 4-year effort of our neighbors in Buckingham County to defend their community from an invasion. The proposed compressor station and pipeline is an invasion of a quiet, rural, and pristine community made up of beautiful souls who deserve to live, work, worship, and play in an undisturbed and uninterrupted by polluted and reduced air quality. We are all Union Hill because when the air quality is threatened in Buckingham County, it is threatened across the state. When the air quality and the water quality and the quality of life is threatened in Buckingham County, in Union Hill, it is threatened also in Richmond. When the air quality and the water quality and the quality of life is threatened in Buckingham County, it is threatened in our world. I'm here today as a faith leader to remind our state, political and corporate leaders that environmental justice is a moral issue. The decision the Air Pollution Control Board is considering will have lasting impact on the people who make Buckingham County their home. We all have a moral duty to protect the human and environmental rights to breathe clean air. Every faith tradition would agree that there is something suspect, immoral, depraved when we put profit before people.
Yeah.
Every faith leader would agree that there's something inept and destructive and immoral and against our faith traditions when the kind of arrogance and pride that we see in the destruction of pristine lands, the height of arrogance of considering to build a pipeline underneath the James River, the incredible pride and arrogance to think that putting a compressor station in the heart of a poor, marginalized community is acceptable.
No.
When they are willing to move it when wealthy interests ask them to in elsewhere planned proposed sites. This is immoral, and we stand as faith leaders and as people of faith, of all faiths, to declare it so. While I'm not here officially as a member of the Advisory Council for Environmental Justice, I must point out that we submitted a lengthy report to the governor recommending a suspension of all permitting for the proposed construction of the compressor station and pipelines several months ago. Since that recommendation, we have learned from the United Nations IPCC report that we have 12 short years to shift to renewable carbon-free economy, thus avoiding the worst climate impacts, impacting the most vulnerable communities who are least able to recover, and endangering health and lives around the world and communities also here in Virginia. The Union Hill community asked that the Air Pollution Control Board deny this permit.
Yeah.
We asked them to deny this permit on grounds of moral concern, environmental justice realities. But we also asked them to deny this permit based on all the record of these persons who have spoken before me this day, that there are legal, scientific, and laws and policies that are already embedded in our state policies and laws that would require the Air Pollution Control Board to say no to this permit. We stand with Union Hill. We are all Union Hill, and we all are asking, requesting, respectfully, and demanding that the Air Control Board deny this.
Yes.
So let's go get them.
Yeah.
We need presence in these rooms for the public hearing today. It's already starts at 9:30, and tomorrow. Tell your people and get them to come. The community that's been working to resist pipelines is invited back here whenever the lunch break is. We don't know. Capricious agenda making is one of the wiles. But when it happens, we'll be here and we'll have lunch for you. And there are t-shirts, if you want to wear them to the public hearing, you're welcome to have them. And if there are members of the press here who have not yet received a press packet, please pick one up on your way out. Thank you. We are all Union Hill.